next sutta is 6.2.19. Once, when the Exalted One was staying in the brick hall at Nadika, he addressed the monks, saying, "Monks." "Lord," they replied. And the Exalted One said, "Monks, mindfulness of death, when developed, made to increase, is very fruitful, great in weal, merging in the deathless, having the deathless as consummation. Monks, develop mindfulness of death more." And when he had spoken thus, a monk said to him, "I, Lord, develop mindfulness of death." "How so, monk?" "Herein, Lord, such is my thought. Were I day and night to abide mindful of the Exalted One's word, much would be done by me. Thus, Lord, I develop mindfulness of death." And another said, "I too, Lord, develop mindfulness of death." "How so, monk?" "Herein, Lord, such is my thought. Were I day long to abide mindful of the Exalted One's word, much would be done by me." And another said, "Such is my thought. Were I to abide mindful just so long as I eat an alms meal." And another said, "Were I to abide mindful as I munch and swallow 4 or 5 morsels of food." And another said, "As I munch and swallow only 1 morsel of food." And another said, "I too, Lord, develop mindfulness of death." "How so, monk?" "Lord, such is my thought. Were I to abide just so long as I breathe in and out, or breathe out and in, mindful of the Exalted One's word, much would be done by me. Thus, Lord, I develop mindfulness of death." And when he had spoken thus, the Exalted One said to the monks, "Monks, the monk who makes mindfulness of death, who develops mindfulness of death thus, were I day and night to abide mindful of the Exalted One's word, or he who thinks thus, were I day long to abide mindful of the Exalted One's word, or the one who thinks, as I eat an alms meal, or as I munch and swallow 4 or 5 morsels of food, mindful of the Exalted's words, much would be done by me. Those monks are said to live indolently. Slackly they develop mindfulness of death for the destruction of the asavas. But the monk who develops mindfulness of death thus, were I to abide mindful of the Exalted One's word, as I munch and swallow 1 morsel of food, and he who thinks thus, were I to abide mindful of the Exalted One's word, as I breathe in and out, or out and in, much would be done by me. These monks are said to live earnestly. Keenly they develop mindfulness of death for the destruction of the asavas. Wherefore, monks, train yourselves thus. We will live earnestly. Keenly will we develop mindfulness of death for the destruction of the asavas. Train yourselves thus, monks. That's the end of the sutta. This mindfulness of death is a very important practice for us to, in order that we may turn away from the world and practice the holy life. If we were not to remind ourselves that this body is going to die one day, and that one day is not very far away, then we would be still be very interested in the world, because there are many things in the world, especially nowadays, that would attract us. But it is only because we keep reminding ourselves that death would come in the not too distant time that we have this earnestness, this incentive to practice the holy life. You notice the Buddha said about develop, were I to abide mindful of the Exalted One's word, much would be done by me. This mindful of the Buddha's word, that is mindfulness of the Dhamma, Dhammanusati, one of the objects of the Satipatthana meditation. And in this sutta we can see that this Dhammanusati in the Satipatthana Sutta, some people translate it as contemplating the thoughts, but here it would seem to be Dhamma is the Buddha's words, contemplating the Buddha's words, because by contemplating the Buddha's words, the discourses of the Buddha, that is one way to become enlightened or become an Arya. As I mentioned before in one of the suttas, in the chapter of the fives, the Buddha said there are 5 times a person can become an Arya. One is listening to Dhamma, another one is teaching Dhamma, another one is repeating Dhamma, another one is reflecting on Dhamma, and then the 5th one is during meditation. So in this sutta, the Buddha said, if we only reflect on death, and in a way that you think you ought to reflect on the Buddha's words, only say like once a day or once a day and night, then the Buddha said that is being very slack, that is not being earnest about the practice. But one who develops mindfulness of death so that with every breath he reminds himself of death, or with every mouthful of food he reminds himself of death, and he thinks of the Buddha's words, then such a person is said to be earnest. In other words, the Buddha is trying to tell us that as often as possible we should remember to practice the mindfulness of death. As often as we can, we should contemplate on the Buddha's words. The next sutta is 6.3.27. Now a certain monk visited the Exalted One, saluted him and sat down at one side. And so seated, he said to the Exalted One, Lord, how often should one go and see a monk who has developed mind? Manobhavaniya. How often should one go and see a monk who has developed mind? And the Buddha said, Monk, there are these 6 times when one should go and see a monk who has developed mind. What 6? Herein, monk, when a monk is obsessed in heart by passionate lust, overwhelmed by passionate lust, and knows no refuge, as there really is, from the surge of passionate lust, then let him visit a monk who has developed mind, and say this to him, Good sir, I am indeed obsessed in heart by passionate lust, overwhelmed thereby, nor know I any refuge from the surge thereof. Well were it for me if the Venerable One would teach me Dhamma to get rid of this lusting. Then the monk will teach him Dhamma to rid him of that lust. This monk is the first time to go and see a monk who has developed mind. Again, when in heart he is obsessed by ill will, or sloth and torpor, or restlessness and worry, or doubt, is overwhelmed thereby, nor knows a refuge from the surge thereof, then let him visit a monk who has developed mind, and say, Good sir, I am obsessed in heart by this and that, nor know I any refuge from the surge thereof. Let the Venerable One teach me Dhamma. And he does so. This monk is the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th time to go and see a monk who has developed mind. Moreover, monk, when from some object as he concentrates thereon, there comes not to him at intervals asava destruction, nor knows he that object, nor realizes it, then let him visit a monk who has developed mind and say, Good sir, from this object as I concentrate thereon, there comes not to me at intervals asava destruction, nor know I this object, nor realize it. Well were it for me if the Venerable One would teach me Dhamma to the end that I may destroy the asavas. Then the monk will teach him Dhamma to destroy the asavas. This monk is the 6th time to go and see a monk who has developed mind. That's the end of the sutta. Here the Buddha is saying when a monk, and it probably also applies to a lay person, when he is obsessed by the 5 hindrances, by sensual desire or passionate lust. Second one is ill will or anger. The 3rd is sloth and torpor. and then restlessness and worry, and the fifth one is doubt. If you have these, if he's very much disturbed by these hindrances, then he should go and seek advice from a monk who has overcome these 5 hindrances, one who has attained one-pointedness of mind. And sometimes for the sake of Dhamma teaching, it is reasonable sometimes to inconvenience a monk, unless of course the teacher monk is meditating or something like that, then it's not proper to disturb him. But if he's not meditating even at night, it is all right for another monk to go and seek the advice of a senior monk who is able to guide him to overcome the 5 hindrances. And the 6th one is he cannot grasp or understand the object of meditation. He's not adept at it, then he should go and ask for this advice. This monk who has developed mind, here is Mano Bhavaniya. Comes from the word Bhava. Bhavaniya comes from the word Bhavana. This word Bhavana is development. And in the suttas, here you find it is development of mano, the development of the mind. In some other sutta, we came across samadhi, samadhi bhavana, development of samadhi. And when we talk about bhavana, development, bhavana is usually a word used for meditation. It means development of the mind. And here in the suttas is either development of the mano, the mind, or development of samadhi. And it helps us, one who has developed the mind is one who has got rid of the 5 hindrances. Generally, that is what is understood. Now the next sutta it's quite an important sutta, 6.3.29. The Exalted One addressed the Venerable Udayan, saying, "How many states are there, Udayan, of ever-minding?" Now when he had spoken thus, the Venerable Udayan was silent. And a second and a third time the Exalted One spoke in like manner, but the Venerable Udayan remained silent. Then said the Venerable Ananda to the Venerable Udayan, "Udayan, Venerable Sir, the Master addresses you." And Udayan said, "I am listening to the Exalted One, Ananda, Venerable Sir." "Lord, a monk remembers many previous existences, that is to say, 1 birth, 2 births, and so on. He remembers many previous existences in all their modes, in all their detail. This, Lord, is a state of ever-minding." Then said the Exalted One, "I knew, Ananda, this foolish fellow Udayan did not live intent on higher thought. How many states of ever-minding are there, Ananda?" "Lord, there are 5 states." "What 5? "Herein, Lord, a monk, aloof from sensual desires, enters and abides in the 1st jhana, the 2nd jhana, and the 3rd jhana. This state of ever-minding, Lord, thus made to increase, leads to dwelling at ease here and now. Again, Lord, he concentrates on the thought of light, fixes his mind on the thought of day. As by day, so by night. As by night, so by day. Thus, with mind neither hampered nor hindered, he makes his mind become radiant. This state of ever-minding, Lord, thus made to increase, leads to the gain of insight knowledge, jnana dasana. Again, Lord, he considers this body upwards from the soles of his feet, downwards from the hair of his head, as skin-bound, as full of diverse impurities. There are in this body the hair of the head, the hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, marrow, kidney, heart, liver, pleura, spleen, lungs, intestines, mesentery, belly or stomach, dung, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease or lymph, spittle, snot, synovial or oil of the joint, urine. This state of ever-minding Lord, thus made to increase, leads to the riddance of passionate lust. Again, Lord, suppose you see a body cast away in a cemetery, 1 day dead, 2 days dead, or 3 days dead, bloated, blue-black, a mass of pus. He compares his own body thus. This body too is subject thus. Thus it will come to be. This is not past. Or suppose he sees such a body being eaten by crows, ravens, vultures, dogs, jackals, vermin. He compares his own body in like manner. So too, a body that is a chain of bones with flesh and blood sinew bound, or fleshless but blood bespattered sinew bound, or without flesh or blood sinew bound, or but bones scattered here and there, here a hand bone, there a foot bone, there a leg bone, here a thigh bone, here a hip bone, there a backbone, here a skull. Should he see a body cast away in a cemetery, the bones of which are white as a seashell, a heap of bones, a rotting, powdering mass, years old, he compares his own body thus. This body too is subject thus. Thus it will come to be. This is not past. This state of ever-minding Lord, thus made to increase, leads to the rooting out of the conceit, I am. Then Lord, putting by pleasure, a monk enters and abides in the 4th jhana. This state of ever-minding Lord, thus made to increase, leads to the complete penetration of the countless elements. Lord, there are these 5 states of ever-minding. Sadhu, sadhu, Ananda. Oh, well done, Ananda. And hold too this 6th to be a state of ever-minding. Herein, Ananda, a monk goes out mindful, comes in mindful, stands mindful, sits mindful, lies down mindful, and is mindful in performing action. This state of ever-minding, Ananda, thus made to increase, leads to mindfulness and self-possession. That's the end of the sutta. This is a very good sutta. Here there are 5 states of ever-minding or mindfulness that Venerable Ananda said. The first one is the 3 jhanas, which leads to a dwelling at ease here and now. And the second one is he concentrates on the thought of light, fixes his mind on the thought of day, as by day, so by night, as by night, so by day. Thus with mind neither hampered nor hindered, he makes his mind become radiant. And this leads to insight knowledge. So you see, this is the best condition for a person to obtain jnana dasana. Seeing, sometimes is translated as seeing and knowing, sometimes is translated as insight knowledge. So from here you can understand the purpose of samadhi, the purpose of jhana, why jhana is very often stressed in the Buddha's discourses. And the reason is, jhana literally is a state of mental incandescence when the mind becomes very bright. And here we know why the Buddha wants us to cultivate the mind very bright, because it leads to insight knowledge. If the mind is dull, it's not bright, it does not lead to insight knowledge. Then the third thing that Venerable Ananda mentioned is the meditation on the 32 parts of the body. And here it is said that the meditation on the 32 parts of the body leads to the riddance of passionate lust. Lust is abandoned this way. This meditation on the 32 parts of the body is both a samatha and a vipassana practice, a tranquilization practice as well as a contemplation practice. In the earlier sutta we read, Anguttara Nikaya 2.3.10, it is said that samatha leads to the riddance of passionate lust. Samatha, just plain samadhi itself, when the mind becomes very strong, very strongly concentrated, the hindrances are abandoned, and passionate lust is one of the hindrances. So this is another way to get rid of passionate lust by contemplation on the 32 parts of the body. Then the fourth one is meditation on the corpse, the different types of corpse. A corpse that is 3 days old, bloated, blue-black, a mass of pus, etc. Then when we think of this type of corpse, then we think of our own body. One day our body will also be like that, foul, smelling, rotting. Or few days later, it is broken up, eaten up by crows, vultures, dogs, worms, etc. So in the same way, we also think that one day our body will be like that. Or after some time, when most of the flesh is eaten up, then it is a chain of bones, with some flesh left, some blood left, and the sinews are still there, binding all the bones together. Or it is fleshless, no more flesh, but still some blood on it, and the sinews are still there, binding, holding all the bones together. Or later, without flesh or blood, and then later, when the sinews are also gone, and then the bones are scattered here and there, here a hand bone, there a foot bone, there a leg bone, etc. Then later, the bones become white as a seashell, and later even turns to powder. So when we think about how this body is going to end up that way, it helps us to get rid of the conceit, I am. Then the fifth one is the fourth jhana, and it's stated here, the fourth jhana leads to the complete penetration of the countless elements. The fourth jhana is superior to the earlier three jhanas, and because it is such a tranquil state, that deep insight can be obtained from the fourth jhana. And then the sixth one that the Buddha mentioned is mindfulness of our body, in the sense of that a monk goes out mindful, comes in mindful, stands mindful, sits mindful, lies down mindful, and is mindful in performing action. This leads to mindfulness and self-possession. By itself, it doesn't give you insight. When you are mindful of your bodily actions, by itself it does not lead us to much wisdom, but it maintains our mindfulness and self-possession, sati sampajanya. And if we can maintain our mindfulness without it being broken, then it leads to concentration, to a low stage of concentration. And it helps us to develop samadhi. This, in the Satipatthana Sutta, there are various contemplations on the body, and the earlier ones are more useful, like the 32 parts of the body, the corpse and all that, because it, especially the corpse one, it gives us some urgency to practice. Let's stop here for a while. Now the next sutta is 6.3.30. Monks, these six are above all. What six? The sight above all, the sound above all, the gain above all, the training above all, the service above all, the ever-minding above all. And what monks is the sight above all? Herein monks, some go and to see the treasures, the elephant, the horse, the gem, to see diverse things, to see some recluse or Brahmin wrong in view, treading the wrong path. And is that the sight, monks? No, I say it is not. It is indeed a mean sight, common, vulgar, un-Aryan, not well-founded, leading not to world-weariness, dispassion, ending, calm, knowledge, awakening, nibbana. But some, endowed with faith and piety, sure in trust, go to see the Tathagata or the Tathagata's disciple. That, monks, is the sight above all sights for purging man, overcoming grief and woe, clearing away ill and pain, winning truth, and realizing Nibbana. I mean going to see the Tathagata or his disciple, endowed with faith and piety, sure in trust. This, monks, is called the sight above all. Herein is the sight above all. And what, monks, is the sound above all? Herein, monks, some go to hear the sound of the drum, the lute, the sound of song, to hear diverse things, to hear the Dhamma of some recluse or Brahmin, wrong in view, treading the wrong path. And is that the sound, monks? No, I say it is not. It is indeed a mean sound, common, vulgar, un-Aryan, etc. But some, endowed with faith and piety, sure in trust, go to hear the Tathagata's Dhamma or his disciples. That, monks, is the sound above all sounds for purging man. I mean going to hear the Tathagata's Dhamma or his disciples' Dhamma or his disciples. This, monks, is called the sound above all. Herein is the sight and sound above all. And what, monks, is the gain above all? Herein, monks, some gain the gain of a son or a wife or wealth, gain diverse things, gain faith in some recluse or Brahmin, wrong in view, treading the wrong path. And is that the gain, monks? No, I say it is not. It is indeed a mean gain. But some, endowed with faith and piety, sure in trust, gain faith in the Tathagata or his disciple. That, monks, is the gain above all gains for purging man. I mean gaining faith in the Tathagata or his disciple. This, monks, is called the gain above all. Herein is the sight, sound, and gain above all. And what, monks, is the training above all? Herein, monks, some train in elephant law, in horsemanship, in the use of the chariot, the bow, the sword, train in diverse ways, train after the way of some recluse or Brahmin, wrong in view, treading the wrong path. And is that the training, monks? No, I say it is not. It is indeed a mean training. But some, endowed with faith and piety, sure in trust, train in the onward course of higher virtue, higher mind, and higher wisdom, according to the Dhamma Vinaya declared by the Tathagata. That, monks, is the training above all training for purging man. I mean training in the onward course of higher virtue, higher mind, and higher wisdom. This, monks, is called the training above all. Herein is the sight, sound, gain, and training above all. And what, monks, is the service above all? Herein, monks, some serve a warrior, a Brahmin, a householder, serve diverse folks, serve some recluse or Brahmin, wrong in view, treading the wrong path. And is that the service, monks? No, I say it is not. It is indeed a mean service. But some, endowed with faith and piety, sure in trust, serve the Tathagata or his disciple. That, monks, is the service above all services for purging man. I mean serving the Tathagata or his disciple. This, monks, is called the service above all. Herein is the sight, sound, gain, training, and service above all. And what, monks, is the ever-minding above all? Herein, monks, some ever mind the gain of a son or a wife or wealth, ever mind diverse gains, ever mind some recluse or Brahmin, wrong in view, treading the wrong path. And is that the ever-minding, monks? No, I say it is not. It is indeed a mean ever-minding, common, vulgar, un-Aryan, not well-founded, leading not to world-weariness, dispassion, ending calm, knowledge, awakening Nibbana. But some, endowed with faith and piety, sure in trust, ever mind the Tathagata or the Tathagata's disciple. That, monks, is the ever-minding above all, ever-minding for purging man, overcoming grief and woe, clearing away ill and pain, winning truth and realizing Nibbana. I mean ever-minding the Tathagata or his disciple, endowed with faith and piety, sure in trust. This, monks, is called the ever-minding above all. Verily, monks, these are the six above all. That's the end of the sutta. Here the Buddha is saying that the sight above all sights is going to see the Tathagata or his disciple. And then the sound above all sounds is to hear the Tathagata's Dhamma or his disciples. And the gain above all gains is to gain faith in the Tathagata or his disciple. And the training above all is the training in the higher virtue, the higher mind, and the higher wisdom. It's the Adi Sila, Adi Chitta, and Adi Panya. And then the service above all service is to serve the Tathagata or his disciple. And the ever-minding above all, that is remembering, is to ever mind the Tathagata or the Tathagata's disciple. You see, the Buddha is saying the right path leads to world weariness, dispassion, ending, calm, knowledge, awakening, nibbana. If we practice anything that leads to greater passion for the world, greater excitement for the world, that is not the spiritual path, not the holy path. It is a path that leads to enjoyment of the world, which ends in more dukkha. But the path that leads to weariness of the world is a path that leads to dispassion for the world, and that is a path that leads ultimately to the greatest happiness.